A South African Human Rights Commission report probing the pollution of the Vaal River has found that none of the government parties central to the debacle has taken accountability for the pollution of the river. The SAHRC also says the river is polluted beyond acceptable standards. We're now joined by Save the Vaal Environment Vice Chair Maureen Stewart and South African Human Rights Commissioner Jonas Sibanyoni. A very good evening to you both. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Hi, good evening.
All right, we'll be joined by Mr. Sibanyoni in just a moment. Let's first start with you to hear what your organization feels about what the report has found, that there's been a lot of blame shifting by the parties central to the Vaal River crisis, the Emfuleni local municipality, the Gauteng Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, for instance, including the National Department of Water and Sanitation. What are your thoughts?
Well, in terms of the report, we obviously welcomed having this report. It's been 2 years, but the report certainly tells the story like it was then and exactly like it is now, unfortunately. We certainly hope that the Human Rights Commission will maintain pressure on the government, on the 3 tiers of government, to actually get into action now. There's been a lot of planning, a lot of talking, but very little action. So we are delighted that the Human Rights Commission has come out with a report, and we look forward to them seeing the results of what they have asked for.
So just let's look at what the various parties have been saying. For instance, Emfuleni are saying that they're not the only municipalities which contributed to the crisis. What are your thoughts?
They're right. I think there are other municipalities that have definitely contributed. If you take the whole of the Upper Vaal system, for example, there are many municipalities that are polluting the Vaal River. Our interest is particularly in terms of the Vaal, from the Vaal Dam through to Parys. In those terms, there is no question that the Emfuleni municipality is the greatest contributor to pollution of the river. And that includes industry and other councils as well. Yes, Mid-Vaal, City of Johannesburg, are also responsible for some pollution, but the main weight of the blame certainly lies with the Emfuleni Council.
And just the SAHRC panelists did, though, eventually say that the buck stops with the Department of Water and Sanitation. How have they failed? They've claimed, for instance, that when they realized that there was a problem, they availed funds to Emfuleni to resolve the problem. But as you've already mentioned, there's the City of Johannesburg and Mid-Vaal. They played their part in directing material towards the sewage systems.
Yes, I think one has got to look at the 3 tiers of government. They've probably been passing blame from one to the other. Basically, there are roles and responsibilities. Where the Department of Water and Sanitation has failed hopelessly over many, many years is in terms of oversight and of taking firmer action against municipalities that are polluting our rivers and dams. The Gauteng legislature also has a major oversight responsibility. And in fact, they have now stepped into the shoes of the municipality by virtue of their about 2 years ago, they took partial administration of the municipality. They also came up with lots of plans, but unfortunately no action. So all levels of government have responsibilities, and the problem is that they haven't actually taken up those responsibilities. I would like to just say one thing, though. The Minister of Water and Sanitation has been the first person to show a real interest in the problems of the Vaal River. Last year, she visited us a number of times. She's made commitments to us, and we do have faith in her. But unfortunately, the department has not completely come to the party. So, but we do salute Minister Lindiwe Sisulu.
And I do believe that we have the SAHRC Commissioner Jonas Sibanyoni with us. A very good evening, and thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Sibanyoni. We've just been talking about your report and some of the things that it's been saying. So I'd like to now move on to what your findings were. I mean, it says 19 million people rely on the Vaal River, but that Parys had to pay the brunt of this. Just take us through, how badly impacted were people? How was their quality of life affected?
Thank you very much for inviting me, and good evening to your listeners. The impact is very, very great. It impacted the rights that are guaranteed in terms of Section 2 or Chapter 2 of the Constitution. And there is a whole host of rights that have been impacted. You can think about the right to dignity, the freedom and security of the person, the environment, as well as the right to health care, the right to food, the right to water specifically. And this has been also affecting the rights of children, because the Constitution says children should be protected from maltreatment.
Are you able to give us a sense of numbers? How many households were affected who did not have access to clean drinking water? What kind of a situation did it put them in?
I won't give you the correct figures, but this is based on the research and the submissions that were made by various participants who came to our public hearing. We call it a subpoena hearing. And then it consisted of civil society, community leaders, and they also those who are, you can call them an environmentalist activists, who have been monitoring the situation in the Vaal.
Right. Ms. Stewart, you are part of those. And I really hate to belabor the point, but I think it is important. A lot of us are watching the visuals, shocked by it, to just get a sense of how people's lives were impacted. So what did they have to do if they didn't have access? Obviously, it's clear that access to piped water was something of a struggle, and they were faced with a situation of having to drink from the polluted river. So just give us a sense of how their livelihoods were impacted. What happened? Where could they go?
I think
it's a piece of...
Yes, can I get Ms. Stewart to please answer that?
I think that within the Mfuleni Council, there is definitely a shortage of piped water into households. And hundreds of thousands of people are, impacted by that. But below the barrage, those people rely on drawing water from the polluted Vaal River for their own water. And I can't give you numbers, but there are a lot of people impacted. And it's a very, very serious health risk. It's a risk to children growing up. It's a risk to agriculture. And of course, the animals as well, farm animals who drink from the river. So it's a very, very serious issue.
And Mr. Sibanyoni, I see from the report you have suggested as part of a remedy that the Department of Water and Sanitation must develop policies and standards that deal with the water crisis in South Africa. One would think that should already be in the legislation, or are you looking at some of the criminality that you mentioned, the vandalism, the theft?
Absolutely, you are spot on. But when we talk about policy, because the legal framework is already there, and then also you've got the legislation, the Water Act, you've got the NEMA, the National Environmental Act. But what we are saying, we want to have a plan, a specific plan that talks to the problem, that talks to the mischief as to why it will be addressed. And then we also say it must have short-term, and long terms as to how this problem will be resolved.
Ms. Stewart, just looking at some of the recommendations from the report, also saying that to prevent the situation from occurring again, that there must be a compliance with the Critical Infrastructure Act, or that it's got to be declared a critical infrastructure. And one would think that if you look at the Bill of Rights, that again, that would something that would already be legislated. So what needs to change in this regard? Ms. Stewart, yes.
Well, it's okay. I think that it's that particular recommendation in the report about being declared a critical infrastructure is we support it 100%. It needs to be properly secured. All the infrastructure, the whole wastewater system needs to be properly secured, properly guarded. At the moment, as it came out, I think in the report, that some of the wastewater works are not even properly fenced, and there are people, living within the area there. That is unacceptable for what is critical infrastructure. So we would really welcome that. And the other thing, I think, the municipalities have, in general terms, shown that they do not have the ability to successfully run wastewater treatment systems. Therefore, there needs to be a new plan. And I would like to see those being the wastewater treatment systems actually, and the provision of water being regarded as separate entities, but perhaps on the basis of a public-private sector partnership, because there is income to be made and efficient operation of the system, and very importantly, ongoing maintenance of the systems and adding to infrastructure. Those will be the success factor and in the long term.
Finally, Mr. Sibanyoni, now this question is to you. Looking at you're saying that the municipalities must uphold the rule of law and constitutional supremacy in South Africa. We spoke about the three municipalities earlier on, Johannesburg, Midvaal and Mfuleni. Would there be punitive recommendations given the fact that you said there was a lot of blame shifting, and what would they be?
Yes, our recommendations, we refer to them as directives, and also we regard them as binding, taking from the decision of the Constitutional Court, in terms of which the Constitutional Court said the recommendations or the decisions of the public protector are binding. Therefore, we are saying we are the same category as the public protector. We are the Chapter 9 institution. And as the Chapter 9 institutions, we are saying these decisions or these directives that we are giving, they are binding. And any person who is not happy with them can only apply to a court of law for the decisions to be reviewed. But otherwise, they are binding. We have given a period of 60 days to say that they should be compliant with our decisions, failing which we have got an option to take those who will be defaulting, those who will be ignoring our decisions or our directives to court. Yes.
Thank you very much to both of you. Maureen Stewart, Vice Chair of the Save the Vaal Environment, and South African Human Rights Commission Commissioner Jonas Sibanyoni.